All right, boys and girls, good news. Mrs. Pope is not home tonight, so that means I'm gonna get wild. And when I mean get wild, I mean make videos for school. That's me getting wild. So, we're gonna talk about Latin America. I tried to be all like cool hipster and wrote LA like, LA. Anyways, Latin America today. We're gonna talk about today what's going on, some of the struggles, some of the things that they have going on for themselves. This will help you answer that question about what industry needs good transportation and communication. And just a quick refresher, industry is taking raw materials and through the use of usually a factory producing manufactured goods that you and I uh, buy all the time from Walmart and places like that. But anyways, why industry needs good transportation, roads, rail, boats, and good communication, internet, phones to be successful. Okay, that's the question. We're going to talk about some other things along the way. Okay, we better get going here. I want to run out. Just break down some stats here. We're about stats. Three-fourths of the people in Latin America live in a city. Now, I don't know what the United States would be, but I'm guessing it'd be pretty close or probably even higher. I'd bet money it's probably higher. So that just shows to show you how the world is changing. For the first time a few years ago, I read a stat: more people live in cities than they do in rural areas. And Latin America blows away that stat because they're at least 75%. This is Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, where the Olympics were held. Yeah, huge city. Um, this is a Christ Redeemer statue. You've probably seen it before. Um, but three-fourths of people live in the cities. Uh, what what do people do for work? Most people, and this is very true, same for the Middle East. Most people work in agriculture or farming, which is totally unlike our nation. If you think about it, I know around here there's lots of people who are involved in agriculture, but if you took everybody in the entire country and looked at what they did, maybe only 10% or so would actually work in agriculture. Why? Because technology has allowed us to, we don't need all those people like we used to. Back 100, 150, 200 years ago, most of the nation was involved in agriculture. It's changed so much. This allows people to do other things. So most people are farmers. What are their big cash crops? Bananas. I love bananas. I ate a banana today. It was awesome. Okay, so bananas, sugar cane. I don't even need to tell you what that is for. Um, and coffee, which I could just jump into these beans of coffee. Just delicious. Here's my coffee mug. Man, I could really use coffee right now. Okay, so bananas, sugarcane, coffee. Main exports. If you notice, they're not manufactured goods, they're perishable items. Keep that in mind here, okay? Why are they able to grow all this stuff that sometimes we can't grow? Well, and we looked at this yesterday. Come on, you piece of coffee. Come on. Okay, there he is. Wait. There he's back. Go away. Okay. Uh the places where we found a lot of people live, they had fertile soil, a soil that was very good for growing crops. Um, and there's lots of big farms in Latin America where a lot of these crops are produced. The problem, though, is there's a lot of risk and reward. You know, for example, if you bank your entire, all your exports are just perishable items like fruits and vegetables, and let's say you have a bad harvest, you in big time trouble come harvest season. Now, if you diversify more, which we do as a nation, you produce manufactured stuff or stuff that factories make, and you grow crops, and you have a bad harvest, you're still going to be okay. So that's one of the things that Latin America suffers from is they don't diversify. They're very narrow in what they make. And obviously factories cost money, and we'll talk about why they don't have a lot, but they don't have a lot. Okay? They don't have a lot. In Latin America, this region of the world is what we would call the undeveloped world or a developing nation. On this map, everything in orange is a developing nation. What's a developing nation? Well, it's a nation that has not achieved being developed. What does that mean? You're probably saying, Mr. Pope, explain this. These are nations that have not developed the basic necessities for society, economics, and their people. If you notice, the ones in the cream color, Russia, Australia, all of Europe, United States, Canada, developed nations. All right? These are the industrial giants of the world. The rest of the world is still trying to catch up to those parts of the world, including us. So this is a developing nation. And the physical geography of South America presents lots of problems. We talked about the rainforest in the middle, the Andes Mountains on the west coast, Patagonia in the south. You know, we have obstacles in our nation, but we have found ways to conquer them. You know, think about the Rocky Mountains. If you were driven through those, you know about the tunnels that have been blown away and excavated, and the roads that run through, and just all the physical geography of our nation has been pretty much tamed. But the geography of South America is much different. You're dealing with rainforest, desert, mountains, and frankly, that costs a lot of money. Money that these nations always don't have. So geography, in many cases, can kind of separate parts of Latin America and isolate them from one another, which is not good for trade and just sharing general knowledge and culture. Um, I lost my train of thought here. So recently, developed nations like the United States have started investing in Latin America, the people in general. And you're going to say, well, this kind of sounds like outsourcing. It is. There has been a few companies in the United States that within the last 5 years have moved jobs, build factories in Latin America. And you can probably guess why: cheap labor. Um, and that's exactly why they do it. So they're investing heavily. Do they care about the people? You could argue yes, you could argue no. It comes down to business. But they are investing in the country. Not always a good thing. Um, but actually, we'll get to the root of the question here. Transportation is key. Our transportation, our roads, they talked about it, well, at least Trump talked about it during the election. Um, our infrastructure in our nation is getting old and it's starting to fall apart. Bridges, roads, airports, and that costs a lot of money, as you can expect. You think about the roads they do in town, and you guys would be numb to how much it costs. It costs a ton. In Latin America, where money is not always readily available, that's a huge issue. If you don't have roads, rail, airports, it's really hard to transport your goods. I mean, think about if you made something and you could only move it as far as you could maybe drive it or could walk it. You're not going to have a big, real audience for your stuff. So a lack of transportation hurts industry because you can't move your stuff and stuff can't come in. Very, very, very hard. And this is one thing that they have to improve. But once again, it costs lots of money. We, a nation, the United States, have neglected our transportation issues for a while, and pretty soon we're going to get slapped in the face because we have neglected or forgotten about it for too long. The last part here, communication. Yeah, the Zach Morris telephone. God, you were cool if you had one of these. Okay, so communication is also key. I mean, great, you can transport your stuff, but if you can't connect with people around your region or the world that want your stuff, it doesn't matter. Um, but in this regard, Latin America has started to catch up. I'm gonna bust out some facts here. This is actually the Zach Morris Dynatech phone from Saved by the Bell. Like I said, if you had this, you were super awesome. Um, Latin America, internet users, about 56% of Latin America has access to the internet. Now, you're saying, is that good or is that bad? Well, I'll give you our stat. The United States, about 88% of our population has access to internet. So if you notice, there's some countries that are like Cuba, 30%, and there's some like Argentina, 80%, and there's countries in between. So they're rapidly catching up, but you know, you think about our nation, we've been at a high rate ever since the start. Why? We have more money. Okay, these people lack that in many cases. Not always true in every nation, but in many. And then the mobile phone part, about 400 million. And if you notice here, there's about 600 million people in Latin America. About 400 million, so about two-thirds, have access to phones. Ours is obviously higher. So they're catching up. But transportation and communication, if you don't have those, it doesn't matter what you're creating or making. You're just not going to be able. You're not going to be able to sell that stuff. You're not going to be able to bring that stuff in.